Hey, Erica. Thank you for joining today's session. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. So my name is Delinda, and I've been assigned to be your counselor. Did you have any difficulty signing on to the website?
No,
Okay.
it's
Well, great.
fine.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you for taking the time to commit to this counseling session. I've had an opportunity to look at your intake form that you filled out, and I noticed that you have been in therapy before, so I'm pretty sure you're familiar with like the protocol. But I'm gonna go over with you, go over it with you, even though that I know you're familiar with this. Okay. Um, so today's session will be slightly different because it's the first session and it's just going to give us the opportunity to get to know one another. I want to kind of get to know you a little bit more by way of your intake form, kind of go through that. You also reviewed and signed my professional disclosure statement. And what that is that's just letting you know that I'm currently a graduate student that is I'm trying to get I'm pursuing my professional counseling degree in clinical mental health counseling. Um, and I'm under supervision. So this session and the following sessions will be recorded for my supervisor to view my sessions, and also my classmates will review and observe. These recordings will be destroyed at the end of the semester. So is that okay with you?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, perfect. Again, like I said, the session is going to be slightly different. I want to spend some time talking about confidentiality and the limits to confidentiality and your rights as a client. We will also go over your intake form, the methodology, and potential techniques that are probably used throughout your counseling session. And we will also today collaborate on a goal for your counseling outcome. Like, what is it that we're looking for? So, before we get started, I want to make sure you understand that this time is your time. You are safe. This is a safe space. I know virtual reality is, I mean, the virtual session is a little bit different, but you don't have to worry about confidentiality. Whatever you say if within this session is between you and I, with the exception of a couple of things, which I'll go over in just a few minutes. So did you have any questions so far?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. So one of the things that I noticed was the spelling of your name. So how did your name become to be spelled in such manner?
Actually, I'm named after Erica Badu. She's a singer from Dallas, neo soul singer. My
Yeah.
mom likes her.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that because of the spelling of the name. And I'm very familiar with her her records, and I really enjoy her the way she sings and what she talks about. So let's go over the my professional disclosure. Like I told you, I'm a counseling student, and my items will be reviewed by my professors and my classmates to help us grow in this area. As I said, we're going to go over your rights. I believe if and your rights as well as confidentiality. We'll talk about your limitations to confidentiality. So, like I said, everything is confidential with the exception of a few things. If I believe that you may harm yourself or someone else, or if there's child or elder abuse, I will have to disclose that to the appropriate individuals. If you, if your records or your counseling records have been subpoenaed by the court, I will have to let them know about that. I will have to disclose that. Um, you can also ask me to disclose or share some information with others, but that would require written consent. And then there are other legal and ethical reasons why I would have to disclose. But if I ever felt like I needed to disclose some of what we've talked about in the sessions, I will definitely let you know in advance. So you can be totally aware. I would never do that without letting you know in advance. You ha also, do you have any questions about that? Okay, you also have the right to ask any questions. We can talk throughout these sessions. I can propose some techniques or make some suggestions, and you can have the right to say, no, I don't really want to do that. Again, like I said, this is all about you, and you have the right to stop counseling anytime you want. Um, do you have any questions about that? My goal, like I said, is to assist you with your counseling needs. Um, and that is, I can't guarantee any specific outcome, but we will definitely work together to make sure that that happens. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Let's go over your intake form. So I noticed, like I said, that you had been to therapy before, and I just wanted to make sure that you're currently not under care by any other therapist because it would be unethical for me to counsel you if you're already being counseled by someone else.
Not seeing another therapist right
Okay.
now.
Okay, perfect. I also noticed that you're seeking counseling basically for anxiety. So tell me about your anxiety. Tell me a little bit about that.
I recently, not too long ago, got into a car accident um, that I wasn't at fault in. So I'm a little anxious when I'm driving. Um, so yeah, that's mainly why I'm seeking therapy. I just want to be less anxious when I'm behind the wheel and more confident when I'm driving.
So tell me a little bit about, I know being in a car wreck can be a little stressful and I know it can create anxiety. So tell me about what happens when you go have anxiety. Tell me, give me an example of what you go through during your anxiety.
So when I'm driving somewhere, especially somewhere where I haven't been before, I have to use a GPS if it's somewhere like a long distance. I get anxious. My chest feels a little tight, or if it's raining really hard, I get really anxious when I'm driving. Um, I have to make sure like the air is on kind of high so I can like breathe a little bit better. Um, and I'm always like looking in the rearview mirror or just paying really close attention to other cars when I'm driving, as you should do in general, but it's just really heightened when I'm driving
Okay.
nowadays since the accident.
Yeah, that does sound pretty stressful. Um, And it's very understandable when you're in a traumatic event like a car accident that that could trigger anxiety and cause you to go through those physical and emotional symptoms. One of the approach that I use, we call it the theoretical orientation that I use in counseling is called cognitive behavior therapy. And what that is in cognitive behavior therapy, we think that our thoughts and our feelings and behaviors are all linked together. So, if you're constantly worrying about when you're driving, and gives you panic attacks, um, and it affects your sleep, those are your thoughts. I'm worried about, individuals that are driving around me. Your feelings that you get is you get stress and anxiety, and then your behavior is could potentially be, you don't want to drive, or it creates so many feelings in you. So in cognitive behavior therapy, what we try to do is identify those thoughts that you're having that are creating those feelings and behaviors and try to see what we can do to to have your thoughts and your behaviors more in line in a positive way and not necessarily a negative way. Does that make sense to you? Great. So, in reviewing your intake form, I noticed on your intake form, as again, you rated stress and anxiety as your top concerns. And you indicated that you also struggle with agreeing with uh, um, uh, others and avoiding confrontation. Can you tell me a little bit more about those thoughts?
About agreeing with others, avoiding confrontation. Um, I would say I would avoid confrontation just because I feel like, I don't know, sometimes in the heat of the moment, I feel like things could, like when you try to address certain things, I don't know, maybe my tone may not be the best, or I don't know, sometimes people don't always take it. When you're trying to address certain things, people may not take it as that. People may take it as an attack rather than like maybe you're trying to reach a solution with somebody. So sometimes I may just try to avoid the conversation as a whole just because it might make me a little bit anxious because I don't want to get into an argument or I don't want them to think that I'm like combative or something.
So is this related to the anxiety? So if you're in an anxious, if you're filled with anxiety, is this when this occurs or this is just in general?
Maybe a little bit of
Okay. Okay. Okay, that's fair enough. So what do you do? Can you tell me, one of the questions I ask is what kind of things have you tried um to handle your anxiety and things like that? And I noticed that you exercise. Tell me a little bit about your exercising.
I like to go on walks. I like to exercise outside, particularly being in the sun and getting vitamin D is better for you. So I like to go outside.
Yeah.
Um, and just like enjoying the scenery. I like to walk in like, I guess, nicer areas like with trees or water. Um, so yeah, I like to go on walks. That's usually the main form of exercise that I
And so when you exercise, does that relieve any stress? When you're anxious, does that help you? Going on a walk?
do. Yeah, I've noticed when I don't do that, I don't really feel as good. So I try to make it part of my routine, my weekly routine.
Okay. So, with cognitive behavior therapy, there are several different techniques, and it seems to me like headed in the right direction because exercise is one of those things that relieves stress, relieves anxiety. So, that could be one technique that you can use. Have you tried like meditation and breathing exercises to help with that?
Um, Not like traditional meditation. I don't know. I feel like there are like different forms of meditation for me. It could be, I don't know, like taking a long shower or listening to music. I'll do stuff like that,
Yeah.
but I don't like do yoga or things like that.
Okay. That and the taking long showers, the listening to music, those are also helpful things that'll help ground you and get you to the point where you've anxiety has diminished. So one of the things that I noticed in your intake form is you talked about when you're getting ready to go somewhere, you feel anxious. And it just seems like you kind of often think about the worst case scenario since your accident versus, um, when you're driving, and that's what creates stress. Is that true?
I guess you can kind of say that my commute to work, I have a longer commute, so I do see a lot of different things when I'm driving. Um, so I just try to be as cautious as possible. Um, but because I do see a lot and I have experienced, my own accident, I just try to, I guess I kind of do think about it more than most people.
Yeah, and you know what? That's very common for someone to feel anxious, after a traumatic event. And like you said, you've seen not only the experiences that you've had yourself, in your commute to and from work, you've seen other, accidents and things. So I think it's very common for someone to feel that way. Um, One of the things that, that I think would be a great idea is like paying attention to when you feel anxious and paying attention to, once you feel anxious, what are your physical symptoms or what are you feeling? What are you thinking? And so those are some of the things that we're going to work on. I feel like those are some of the things that we need to work on throughout your counseling session. Do you agree? So if I were to ask you, what was the goal of counseling? What is it that you're looking to get out of this? What would you say?
To just better manage my anxiety, um, just so I feel more comfortable driving or just in general, just doing things in general. So it's just not, I don't want to say it's a hindrance because I still drive, but just so I'm not thinking so much about potentially getting into an accident or just so it's not on my mind as much.
Okay. So would it be safe to say that during these counseling sessions, you would like to reduce your anxiety, reduce panic attacks, identify what creates that level of anxiety and figure out what some coping skills are. We can utilize some of those that you're currently using with the exercising and listening to music, and we can maybe build on those a little bit. Would you
Yes.
agree with that? Okay. Um, and I noticed you also said you in your intake form about, difficulty sleeping. Do you think we could potentially work on trying to find ways for you to relax and sleep better? Would you agree with that? Okay. And then one of the things that I I know in your intake form you said, for your fears or concerns of counseling, you said you wanted the counseling to work in relevance to your issue and you don't have time for reading or other activities. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I do work time and I'm also in school.
Oh, that's great.
So, and like I said previously, I do try to, exercise and things like that. So I am kind of busy in general. So I don't have like too much time to dedicate to other things.
Okay. So one thing about cognitive behavior therapy, I definitely understand where you're coming from as a full-time employee who attends school and you already have things going in your life where you really don't have a lot of time. I definitely understand that. But with cognitive behavior therapy, we work together. So it's not like I can prescribe a set of things for you to do, or I can tell you certain things, um, and you'll automatically have this outcome where everything's fine. One thing I want to make sure is that you are committed to um, us working together, and we'll definitely try to ensure that whatever it is that we're doing, as long as we make our sessions, talk through our sessions, and you will have some homework assignments. Even today, I'm going to give you some homework assignments. And it's not going to be very labor intensive, but I just I'm committed to helping you, and I want you to be just as committed. Can we agree on that as well?
I can agree to that.
That's perfect. So, Well, I know we spent a lot of time talking about your past and your anxiety. We've established goals. So let's kind of talk a little bit about homework. The first thing I want to address is to start thinking about your anxiety and what triggers it. So I'd like to start with you creating an anxiety journal. And basically in that with that is every time you feel a level of anxiety, I would like for you, I mean, you can even record it or write down, okay, I'm headed to an unfamiliar place. Um, so that's the event. And then you can say, well, what physical symptoms am I having? And you can say, well, my heart is beating really fast, or I notice I'm a little frustrated, or, you know, I want to know what the physical symptoms are and then what you're thinking as well. If you can write those down, so you know what triggered the feeling, what thoughts you're feeling, and what the physical reaction is. Um, if we can talk, if you could do that, then we can use that to in our next session to start building on how we're going to cope with this, how, you know, identifying the triggers, I think is a way of trying to determine what we need to do to cope with that. Does that seem like something you can do? That's not too labor intensive?
No, I can do that.
Okay. So, well, one thing I want to do, you know, we've come to the end of our session. You know, we reviewed your history, we've discussed anxiety, you know, we've set our goals. You know, we're going to reduce that anxiety, come up with some coping mechanisms, and, you know, try to figure out how we're going to work on your sleep pattern, you know. Um, and I want to tell you, I appreciate you for sharing openly, and I look forward to seeing you in our next session so we can start on the road to uncover what's to help us uncover what's creating this and try to have some mental health growth.
Um,
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next session.
thank you.